Okay, so we all made it. Welcome to the last session of BlinkOn. So this is the Q&A. The way this is going to work, we have a few questions that have been submitted in advance that I'll read. And otherwise, we have Mike as our human mic stand at the back. So if you want to, if you have a live question, just go and kind of stand near Mike, and you'll be able to ask your question. This is our esteemed panel minus T. Kent, who has gone missing somewhere. So hopefully he'll join us. So everyone give him a big round of applause when he walks in the room. Okay, so I think to get started, we'll have each of the panelists just introduce themselves quickly. If we can just, each just say a couple of things about yourself, and we'll pass the mic down, and then we can get started.
Hello, I'm Jochen. I work on various areas of Chrome, Blink, and Feed.
I'm Alex Komorowski. I'm a product manager, works on Chrome web platform stuff.
I'm Chris. I'm tech lead of the Paint team on Blink.
Hi, I'm Doug Stockwell. I work on Blink here in Sydney.
I'm Philip Rogers. I work on Slimming Paint.
Hi, my name is Dongwoo Im from Samsung, a member of Samsung browser team in Korea.
Hello, I'm William from Intel, and I work for performance, power, and memory on AI platform.
Okay, great. To get us started, I'm going to pull a couple of questions from the moderator. Feel free to still go in and upvote or downvote things as you see fit. Okay, so the first question we have, what are some important areas where other browser engines are ahead of Blink? Any of you feel free to kind of jump in. Anyone?
Blink is perfect and the best, I think. So I think we had a Chromium blog post, I think last week, about some of the scheduler work that Ross and others have showed off this week. I think it shows, for example, an area where getting much more responsive to scrolling. There's lots of examples like that where we are not as fast as we want to be, especially on mobile devices, on more resource-constrained devices. So there's lots of areas for us to improve, and I'm really excited that there's so many different teams working on so many different aspects of this, and that we're making really good progress towards that.
I think generally Firefox seems more correct, and especially in terms of the painting and layout algorithms. And Safari is more efficient with power, and I believe is also a faster rasterization system. I can't think of anything specific about IE, but definitely we're very excited about the Edge browser.
Okay. So the next question is, what is the status of efforts to quantify the Railness of a web page? How might Rail be exposed to web developers in DevTools? Anyone?
So that's a great question. I would like to know the answer to that as well. I think I really like the Rail model because it helps pull all these different aspects of performance into one thing that you can reason about very concretely. And I think the insight is your performance is good enough when users can't tell, when it's underneath those requirements for it to be a very seamless experience. In terms of DevTools, I think that we've had, there's a lot of really cool things the DevTools team is working on around this to make it much easier for you to understand as a developer why you aren't hitting some of these guidelines. So right now, DevTools is amazingly powerful, like unbelievably powerful, but to really understand how to make your website go faster or fix performance problems, you have to sort of already know a lot about DevTools and how to dive in and figure out what bad performance looks like. And so I think there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of being much more in users' faces and saying, hey, by the way, you're including these 12 scripts that all include a copy of jQuery, and they're all hooking all the events, the scroll events, and that's never going to be fast. You should consider getting rid of those and other sort of things that are more actionable for people even who don't have a PhD in these performance tools. I don't know if anyone from the DevTools team has anything else they want to talk about. Here, I guess we didn't really talk too much about it this week, but there's a lot of really cool stuff I've seen working on. I think part of it with Rail is it's us giving more headroom to developers. It's helping developers reason about performance in this way, and it's giving them tools like action to give them actionable insights that they can dive into their performance. I think it's all aspects of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
I guess I'll just add that we have a ways to go to actually instrument Blink properly to be able to measure Rail in some way. I mean, to some extent, it's application dependent, but there are some things that we can do within Blink to instrument. And we're trying to find people who are passionate about this. So if you are, then please volunteer.
So our next question, how are our non-Google contributors feeling about working in Blink? Has anything gotten better or worse since BlinkOn last year?
So seems targeting to two of us. Okay. I think I can say we are fine with current status, and also I can say it's getting better. So so for example, I think I talked this about this with many guys in this during 2 days. Currently, non-Googler committers can check the commit box and also can run the tribot. And yeah, I mean, that's currently changed. And I also have one in mind. I just talked with these guys, is without the Google email ID, such as google.com or chromium.org, we cannot access the cluster fudge, the result. So whenever I got the cluster fudge, the issue, that means I got the issue which I cannot see. So now I got the chromium.org email and I can access and I can see, but some of my colleagues cannot actually see what happens. So I mean, that one, I believe that one also getting better, hopefully.
Yeah, please for issues like this, file a bug and feel free. Like if it doesn't get any kind of attention, then just send it to somebody like me, for example, and to make sure it actually gets done. Like for example, recently I think we somehow solved this that Opera now can edit issues without using a Chromium org account or something. So like these issues should be solvable.
Yeah, I'll just say really quickly I'll just say really quickly, the set of restrictions on who can edit issues and who can view issues and stuff like that inside the bug tracker is actually a completely horrible and terrible system. And we're working on fixing that both inside the current bug tracker and as we switch to whatever happens as Google Code shuts down. So things like that should get better, and chromium.org accounts shouldn't be necessary for things in the near future.
For cluster fuzz, if you're CC'd on the bug, you should be able to see the test case in cluster fuzz. If that doesn't work, then you should file a bug. It's supposed to.
Hello. Hello. I'm from Intel. You know, Intel has some unique hardware advanced features. We our engineer always want to propose to Google and try to leverage our hardware more. But sounds like Google doesn't like this style. They like you prefer the cross-platform services. Need to consider ARM platform or Samsung platform. So I'm not sure if this is good or not, but it's, to be honest, it's not Intel in Blink and Chrome. We actively joined, but there's not so much contribution. Yes. and we needed to try to figure out a efficient way. We want an efficient way to work with Google, with Blink, to get more information or know more, engage in the earlier stages. That's maybe my personal feeling. Maybe it doesn't stand for Intel comment.
I'd like to encourage people to speak up about these issues that you see. It was 1 year ago that Opera, when we were up here on stage on this panel, complained about the issue that Jochen just mentioned was fixed. And so it takes some time sometimes, but I think we are pretty dedicated to getting these issues fixed for non-Googlers.
I think one interesting thing too is we have fewer non-Googlers at this BlinkOn, I think, than ever before. I think part of that is that Sydney is harder for some people to reach, and but that's something we should keep an eye on, I think, for BlinkOn 5 as well. To make sure that we see, as we are in more central location, that we see more return.
Can I also add that if you do have suggestions about improving your development cycle, then there is a dev infrastructure team who are working on that. And I've been soliciting, I've talked to some of you about what would actually make the biggest difference to you. So if the current outstanding one is try bots, lots of people have said that if the try bots ran fast, that would actually genuinely improve their development cycle. So just to amplify that message, definitely feedback to the Chrome infrastructure team, or if you don't know what that is, then gem@google.com. Happy to add it to the list of issues.
Got a live one. So I really like that we do BlinkOn every 6 months, especially just because it gives a high-level status check on how things are going. Looking forward to BlinkOn 5, what kinds of things are we going to want to be able to say that we've accomplished? What are like the big things for the next 6 months?
Performance.
I hope that Ojan gives us a great update about his layered platform.
I have one more question. So we care benchmark a lot, but I don't know how Googlers, why Google doesn't care about the benchmark. Looks like you care the real life benchmark, but more. Is any reason why we don't need the benchmark for Chrome, like the very famous benchmark applications? Looks like if we see some performance regression, we see this regression is caught by one of the benchmark applications, but most Google would prefer to use real life workloads, not the benchmark. So I want to know more background or any comments.
So certainly making our performance decisions more public would be useful. Is that what you mean? Are you asking why we make the performance decisions we make?
When Google talking about the performance, it may be telemetry or real life workloads, but you don't use the famous top 10 applications like geo benchmark or whatever, borrowing bench, fish tank, or whatever real life benchmark applications. Why Google don't use these applications?
If there are benchmarks that matter, we should add them to telemetry.
But okay.
We generally prefer real world performance where we can get that, whatever that means. But we find that some of these benchmarks are, micro benchmarks and really hard they optimize things that don't actually impact real world performance. Right?
So I wanted to comment on this because before working at Google, I worked at AMD for 6 years. And as an Intel employee, I think we can agree that there's a lot of gaming of benchmarks that goes on in the chip industry and in the browser industry as well. So I think as a developer, I don't want to get involved in trying to game benchmarks. I'm much more interested in dealing with real world performance.
I'm also going to make a comment while I'm up here because I work on the speed infra team, but choosing the right set of benchmarks and which benchmarks are good is much more of a religion than it is a science. If you have opinions on what is good, you should totally submit those though, because you probably have a perspective that we haven't considered.
I mean, the kind of benchmarks you run also more or less dictate what performance development decisions you do. Right? So if you say you want to optimize for certain kind of benchmarks, you likely end up tanking others. Right? And so I don't think it's feasible to actually just add all the benchmarks and try to win all of them, like other than cheating. So, but if you have benchmarks which you think we're missing, or we're just not watching our performance, then we should certainly consider them. Just in general, I don't think we should add all of them, or especially micro benchmarks.
Thank you.
So another question from the moderator, unless
we didn't get a chance to answer Ryan's original question as much. I think to me, what I'm hoping in the next BlinkOn, I think that this BlinkOn has been very interesting because last time there were a lot of big discussions about big sort of crazy new ideas. And what was interesting about this one is there's just lots of continuations of like the things that we already started on. Yep, they're going well. We'll just keep on trucking. And so I'll be interested to see something paint ship and as oil pan chip slider or whatever. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see some of these things that we're working on, these bigger projects. More birds.
Okay. So the next question is, how do emerging markets and mobile change the demands on Blink?
That's a really good question. I think that we've been focusing on mobile devices in sort of mature markets. Some of the constraints in emerging markets, some of the hardware is definitely way lower powered. And obviously that's a very large number of users are there. And as more and more of those users start using the internet or using the web, we will have to change potentially what exactly we're optimizing for. But I don't know exactly what that will look like in practice. Because some of the things, some of the solutions to solving some of these problems are, throw more memory at the problem or whatever. That doesn't work if you only have 512 megs on a device. So I don't know. I think we'll have to explore what that looks like. But
yeah, and for mobile in general, everybody knows that the less powerful battery is orders of magnitude more important than it is on even a laptop, even though it is important on a laptop. So you have fewer threads and all those sorts of things and less memory. But I think one thing that's different now in our perspective from a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, when we started let's really think about mobile and let's tech up on what mobile means and how to optimize for it, is that I think we have a much better understanding, first of all, of what the challenges are and what the capabilities are of mobile devices and the trade-offs. But also like the relative attention that we should pay to all the different platforms, because I think for a while we were not doing enough service to the other platforms, and I think now we have more of a balanced approach as we see that like there are all these different things to be paying attention to. And emerging markets, I think, is a thing that we'll have to pay attention to with respect to that too. You want to pay attention, but you also want to make sure that you service all of the customers.
Okay. The next question we have is, how do we track the health of the web platform? Are there specific metrics that we think about? And if there are, how have they changed since the last BlinkOn? How has code health changed?
Code health or the web platform?
Sorry, web platform health, yes, sorry.
Well, the statistics, for example, on mobile seem to show that the web is holding some pace. The number of something around 15% of time on mobile, I think there are lots of articles on the web that are about this subject, seems to be holding steady. So that means that the web is doing its thing. There are various other encouraging signs about e-commerce and things like that on mobile.
I mean, there are lots of different metrics we could potentially look at. All of them are flawed for some reason. A lot of people look at the number of minutes spent on internet or on the web on mobile devices. These are generally in practice, if you look at the public stats, dominated by social and gaming in particular. And so the space that sort of web is competing with is actually a smaller slice of that time. On devices, mobile devices, people spend a lot more time just being bored, looking for something to do. They've got a few minutes to kill. They want to read something, consume something that's slightly interesting, but they aren't really that attached to. So if they get distracted before they finish, they don't really care that much. So I think that that's the amount of time spent on web is one interesting, or the percentage share of time on mobile devices that's spent on web is interesting. Some of these metrics take a long time to move. So a lot of these, we are trying to build an ecosystem where developers are empowered to create experiences that users love. And that takes a while because we have to influence developers and they have to build things and users have to spend time with them. I'm very curious and very excited to watch for the impacts in the ecosystem around push notifications in particular. That's something that is really, really important to a lot of these things. It's one of the primary ways that people consume stuff on mobile devices is via push notifications, is realizing when there's new stuff at sites they care about. I've heard from various folks we talked to, some publishers have told us that the percentage of app opens that are driven by push notifications for them are like 40% of their app opens are driven by push notifications, because that's just the way people consume content on mobile devices. So hopefully that should have a big impact, and I'm excited to see how that plays out.
So I'm also very happy and think it's a good sign of the health of the platform that we see other browser vendors picking up the work on APIs we launched, right? So Mozilla is working on service workers and push notifications. There's like recently a lot of discussion and almost agreement going on, like what Shadow DOM should look like. And so I think it's also a sign that we're not going towards like a Chrome-only web, but we actually managed to lead the web in a direction we think it's good. And I think that's a sign that we're doing healthy.
That's a good point.
So that's a nice segue into our next question, which is, as Blink engineers, are we involved enough in the web platform ecosystem? Could we be doing more, or what? Are there specific events or forums where we could get more involved with other vendors?
This has always been a problem, I think, because some of the knowledge required to build a browser is very different from the knowledge required to be a web developer by trade. I think it's good to do hobby projects and things and make sure that you re-up your skills and some of the stuff. Like just past month, I wrote my wedding website and I used Service Worker and push notifications just because. And that was really helpful for me to see what had changed in the web platform in the past year. But I've been encouraged by the amount of cross-browser discussions that have been going on. I've really been encouraged to see Microsoft in particular sharing a lot more of their plans more publicly. I think that's really, really good. It's great having folks from Mozilla here at BlinkOn and other knowledge sharing. So I think that's a great trend that we should continue.
You also see like Mozilla on BlinkDev a lot. Yeah. This is super exciting. I hope it continues.
Yeah. So Microsoft also being more public is a great thing.
So carrying on that theme, what's the impact of Edge and the new Microsoft? How does that impact us? How should we be thinking about it?
I'm personally extremely excited that we have another modern rendering engine built by really smart people. And I think that's great for the ecosystem, that there's more ideas out there that of people working together in a collaborative way, not trying to just go your own way, but just to work together and develop these specs and ship interoperable stuff. It's great.
We have time for maybe one or two more questions. If anyone does have a live question, now is a good time. Okay, so one more question from here. What sorts of new things have we been able to learn thanks to Rapport, and how should teams be thinking about their metrics differently now we have Rapport? And Rapport, just in case anyone, I suspect most people know, but it's the framework that allows us to, in a privacy-sensitive way, capture metrics per origin. So we can say on Facebook.com, these metrics occurred, and on Google.com, these metrics occurred.
It's actually a really cool technology that we blogged about in the Chromium blog a few months ago. It's a really interesting technique where you basically inject structured noise into the data, and that way you can factor that noise out later in a way that you can't actually tell anything about any individual records that you pulled together. I think we're still learning exactly what to use this for and how best to use it. There's lots of interesting examples, things that we could do, like for example, for show modal dialogue that we wanted to deprecate, that we know is like this terrible API that needs to go away. The people that use it, but we don't necessarily know where they all are or who else is using it. And that's another tool for us to sort of see where these things are actually being used in the wild so that we can drive outreach efforts via the DevRel team or someone else.
I think Repo is also just only recently available to Blink. So I guess the question would get more answers if you asked it to Chrome developers. But yeah, for example, we also plan or do use it for those powerful feature deprecation stuff that Joel talked earlier today about it. So that is kind of like prime use case that you could identify the biggest players in the field and do developer outreach to talk to them about like why are you using the API in this way, which currently we can't. Actually, we can just experiment a bit and hope that people will adopt, but we have no way of directly talking to the biggest players and asking them why are you doing this? Like, can we somehow help you to do it differently?
I think we might also have the opportunity to use the data, well, to make the data public, so that we could show who is using the web and how.
Okay. Are there any last live questions? Okay. In that case, if you can all join me in thanking our panelists. And now I'm going to hand over to Mike.
All right, thank you, panelists. Thank you for all the questions. Okay, that brings us to the end of BlinkOn 4, everybody. We made it. Yes! And just while we're thanking people, I just would like once more to thank our fantastic organizing team, especially our wonderful admins, Lou and Cass. And also, one last person that needs to be thanked, and that's yourself, because BlinkOn is nothing without us. This is our project. This is our conference. It's all of us that make this project. It's all of us that make this conference fantastic. I'm so happy that so many people were able to come all the way down to Sydney, and look forward to seeing everyone at BlinkOn 5. All right, once again, I'm the only thing standing between you and beer, and what I will do now is tell you how to get there. So drinks, we're going to have drinks and light appetizers upstairs in the cafe, the same one that we had lunch in. So if people could just, on your way out, please take any rubbish with you. Take those fidget toys. Some of you have a long flight home. You can keep yourself amused. And yeah, with that, I think we'll wrap up. Once again, thank you, everyone. Australia is a big country, a welcoming one. You're always welcome back anytime. And we will see you in the Bay Area later this year.
I need to go and thank Rick for providing approximately all but one of the questions.
Oh, well played, sir.
Look at that.
Sorry?